Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 82. Again, we're giving you a look at what we have in store for next week, and also going to compare our analysis from last week, so we can work on from last week's analysis and move forward with it. So we are going to look at gold and Euro USD in two separate videos after this particular video, and we'll just discuss that in a bit more detail, but we are just going to start off with NZDUSD then. So throughout last week, essentially what we were looking for is just ultimately a turnaround. So we can see prices pretty much pushing up from last week where we left off, and we see that price had pushed through. We had some sort of turnaround here, so I'm not entirely too sure if this is the move that's actually going to push lower. Again, it's not going to be anything, if this does push, it's going to be slow, and if that is the case, then then we may have potentially missed this trade to the downside. But what I'm trying to see is if we can get price to push up just a little higher, is there going to be a possibility of price to turn around? And if we can find that turnaround point, then pretty much we're going to hopefully aim to take it into the lows, so as close as we can get into 0.685. That could be a good target also to pretty much aim for. So it's roughly around here. So just under 200 pips or so. So pretty much where we could be looking to pinpoint a target to. But yeah, ideally, if we can, if we are trying to get a setup here, we have one or two scenarios, and that's if price gets to push up, we'll take a sell-off. But if we don't, then we possibly might get price to push very deep into this range, and then have a little retest, and then have a continuation lower. So it really just depends what the market and the price action does really from here, because I don't see any other further possibilities, because I'm quite fixated on a sell-off opportunity, and I still think that we can still push lower still. I don't see any bullishness coming into play right now, so I think that following on from our previous drop-offs, it's clear that I'm still thinking that we can still push lower and lower. So we'll see how far this can push low into, because hopefully in the next few weeks or so, and this is not just with NZDUSD, it's with the other USD pairs, that we will get the next long-term trend. So yeah, so that's pretty much where I stand for with NZDUSD. So moving on to AUDUSD. So this one, essentially what we said from last week was we need to kind of have like some sort of turnaround point around here, and I said that there was a potential opportunity if we could get a buy, and again, it really just depends if we can get into this. So again, we could still be looking into a buying opportunity still, I think, if there is that possibility of price pushing up, because I'm liking how price is stepping up. So maybe we could get a buy-in at some point around here. So whether price pushes lower and then pushes higher, or price just starts to retrace, starts to push up higher anyway, we can still squeeze some pips into this. So yeah, so from the downside to the upside, if we were to go to 0.75 as a target, roughly, just under or just over 100 pips, so good risk reward in my eyes. And then if you want to wait for a trend trade, in my opinion, I think that the overall trend is towards the downside, so I think we should be looking for sell-off opportunities. So somewhere around 0.75, maybe we could find some sort of rejection, and if we can, we could be looking at price to reach into 0.725, so around 200 pips or so. So again, some good opportunities to fall through for that pair, so keeping an eye out for that. The next one up is USDJPY. So what we was explaining last week, I believe, is a potential continuation up higher. I'm not entirely too sure if we did consider any trades from last week into USDJPY longs. I didn't really see, as soon as we pretty much saw this bearish pressure, I wasn't entirely too convinced in what like, you know, really what was up for, you know, potential grabs, if that makes sense. So I wasn't really keen on taking any buys just yet. So I am keeping an eye out for any potential longs. So what I do have still, that I'm keeping in the back of my mind. So let me just get rid of these two drawings. So quickly, what I'm potentially looking into is for a nice little buying opportunity into 111. But if that doesn't hold through, what we could potentially see is just price to continue to drop off. And if we can break the 109 barrier, we should be able to see price break low. And then our trading opportunity will pretty much be just some sort of retest. And it would be like so. So if I was to say like a percentage wise on what I think is most likely to happen, I am slightly swayed into looking at some long opportunities as long as we stay above 109. If we can stay within 109, we could have like a double bottom form, and if that's the case, then we could actually potentially see price roll over into 111. And again, you know, this is some good opportunity here, just over 100 pips or so. So again, in my eyes, that's something that's quite desirable. But yeah, I think that is a possibility of price doing that. But again, if price, you know, if we do take a loss here, the next opportunity it would be to take a retest. So if we can get that break of 109, wait for the retest, and then pretty much take a sell from that, I think that could be a nice alternative in price action. So yeah, so that's pretty much where I am with that. So now let's take a look at CADJPY. So yeah, what we looked at last week was a potential retracement, and as we can see here, price pretty much did a little pullback here, and I think we could get some more continuations up higher now. I'm not entirely too sure if we can continue this bullish leg, because as of last week it pretty much looks like it's slowed down. So what we could expect to see in a possible scenario is if price like was to do a pullback, and then if we was able to do some sort of push higher, and then maybe if we could get some sort of you know, if we get that bullish nature, if we could then see price rally up strong, then, you know, I think it's pretty much confident that we are pushing up higher. But if we start to see more of these slower legs and it starts to get slower and slower, there could be a possibility of where price has a huge sell-off opportunity. So it could look like something like this, or we could have something like this where price just drops off and it's going with the, you know, I think it could follow with the other JPY pairs, where price drops off and then rallies up, and then drops off. So, you know, there is a few possibilities that I'm considering. Again, it usually, you know, on a week-to-week basis, it's quite hard to give the entire insight without having a day-to-day look onto this, because for me, whenever I take a look at the charts on a day-to-day, my bias could change on the day. So, you know, if I'm looking at on a week-to-week basis, like I said, if you think about that, the bias can change at any point. It could be looking at a buy, then I could be looking at a sell, then I could be looking at a sell, then I could be looking at a buy, and vice versa. But yeah, it really just depends what happens with price action. So again, with this, sometimes with pairs, I can't really tell too much in what I'm thinking right now, because obviously price has to kind of give a bit more clues away. So all that I can gather from this is just this bullish momentum, pushed down with the retracement, breaking new highs with the slowed momentum, not really too convincing of more of a continuation. So that's why it could be convincing of this. But the other possibility is if we break this structure low, we could be looking at a possible scenario like so. And if that does happen, then it could rally up. So there are two ways that we could look at this, but ultimately there is an upside opportunity and a downside opportunity that I'm looking into, and if so, there is the possibility of holding a long-term trade-ish. Well, it depends what you think of long-term, but I think long-term anything above the 4-hour chart, and you know, holding these swings. So again, let's call it swing trade. So yeah, swing to the downside. Yeah, it just depends if this is gonna hold. It will have to be evident that, you know, we get some strong pressure to the downside, and then that could be convincing that if we are going to push. But anyway, we'll have to come back to this one. So this one is pretty much a 50-50 from now. So I'm gonna slightly put CADJPY in the back of my mind, and yeah, we'll just pretty much focus on another pair for our next priority trade. So taking a look at EJ. So what I'm saying here is, well, I think last week we was talking about, you know, possibilities of pushing up higher. So what we could potentially be looking into is a drop-off opportunity, and the reason why I was thinking about this from last week was just purely based on the upside momentum. We didn't really find that momentum just yet, and you know, as you can see, it's just not really as strong. If I was to compare the upside pushes to the downside, you know, it's quite clear that the pushes to the downside are very much stronger in comparison to the you know, to the upside. So again, it's pretty much you know, comparison of momentum for me right now. So with that being said, what we could end up seeing for this week is either a push lower, and you know, if we can get a push lower, maybe we find a retest and watch price get into around you know, 128 or so, and you know, pretty much we just have to wait for that retest opportunity, if so, because we may have actually missed this opportunity to sell right from the top. But again, it really comes down to your entry plan and everything. So I think this was what we could be looking at for EJ through this week. But if we start to see, so the alternative is if we start to see price break above 131, I think that could influence a lot of potential bullish momentum. So again, if this does happen, I probably will wait for next week. And you know, that's why I'm saying 50-50 for now with JPY pairs most likely. So yeah, just going to keep this in the back of my head. But I think that, you know, if we start to see bearish pressure kick in across the board, we could be looking at some sell-off opportunities here. So yeah, we'll stand by on this pair, and again, just wait for what we can see. So yeah, so moving on now to NZDJPY. So let's take a look at my notes. So what I was looking at through last week was a potential push up higher and then a drop off, but the second scenario was that we had a sell off straight away. So I think that I could safe to say that, you know, we did have that sell off straight away, and you know, the best scenario that you could have taken from this was just wait for a retest now, but of course I didn't say that last week. So we could potentially be looking at that for this week now then. So what we could be, you know, pretty much anticipating now is, because, you know, we can see this momentum dropping off, there is a possibility of price, you know, maybe retracing higher. If it can, that could be your next entry point. But if not, then pretty much what we could be just waiting for is just to wait for price to break lower, retest, and break this low into into 75 or so. So again, it really just depends what price wants to do, but if we can find a retest at some point, we could look at a sell-off opportunity here or up here. So again, it really just depends if we're lucky enough to get some sort of recovery or retracement, and then we can just obviously, you know, go with this you know, flow with the price action, etc. So in terms of pick count, I don't think this is too much entirely. If we do, you know, if we do manage to get in at the top here, we could be squeezing a good 100 pips, but as obviously if price goes lower and lower, we may have less opportunity to squeeze 100 pips or so. So it may be best to kind of sit this one out, in my opinion, because I think through the long run we could be expecting a turnaround very soon, and it could be, you know, as high as big as price making a huge turnaround to 80. 80 flat. So again, we don't really need to discuss that now. I just want to focus on completing this push to the downside still and wait for that exhaustion, and then if we can see price rally, then that's where we could be looking at the next long-term positioning, I guess. So yeah, so we don't have to discuss that long-term positioning right now, but anyway, let's just move on to AJ for now. So the opportunity that we could be potentially looking into for this week for AJ is still there's potential opportunity for an upside opportunity and a downside, but most likely I'm just going to stick with my guns to the downside for now. So I like how price is pushing lower and lower. I really want to see if we can continue this push lower, and I think adding the because the reason why I say lower, I want to see price push lower than higher, is because if we look through the JPY pairs, majority of the pairs are pushing lower anyway, and I can see here through, there is slight momentum pushing lower, lower, lower. This bullish momentum's already been taken, it's already been squeezed out. But yeah, if we can get a move lower, there is a possibility of prices, pretty much pushing lower and lower. So all we have to do pretty much is just wait for some sort of retest, and if we can, we could pretty much look at taking an entry from that, and probably taking it into 79.5, and then watch for those reactions towards the upside. Again, if we can get a retest trade, it would be, we could be looking at we could be squeezing a good 100 pips or so. Again, it really just depends if we can get that price move to push lower. But yeah, ultimately though, I do want to see long term price to push up high to take out this high, which is the pretty much the turnaround from May. So this is pretty much the high. So if we do see price push lower, I am pretty much waiting for a strong bull run into 86. So again, we have a lot of room to go over the next few weeks or so. So yeah, we will be starting off a new trend very soon. Well, long term. So yeah, we'll just have to sit tight and again wait for price to do its thing. So yeah. So looking at USDCHF for the last two pairs for this video. So what we were looking at through last week was a retest of some sort, and essentially to sell off into the downside. Now what we were essentially expecting from there was to look for some buying opportunities, and we were expecting for the price to reach into 93. So again, there was that opportunity to take a sell. I believe I personally missed this, so we can just move on to the next opportunity, I guess. So whilst we are now looking for those pushes, well, whilst we were looking for sell-off opportunities, the second part is we could be now looking at some buying opportunities. So we could expect something like this to happen, and then have this huge push up higher also. So again, what we could be looking, if we were to just take it simpler, we could be just looking something like this, and we could even squeeze a final sell if we really wanted to. But ultimately, if you really wanted to hedge your bets for the long term, in my opinion, I think that we are in store for a nice turnaround towards the upside. So if we come to 0.90, we could be heading into 0.93, which the upside opportunity is a good 300 pips. But yeah, if we can get a retest trade of some sort into 90, into around 90, yeah. We could just squeeze 100 pips or so. So again, it really just depends upon your own risk to reward margin, etc. And it really just depends what you want to do. If you just want to squeeze the pips, or if you want to hold on to them, it's totally your choice, I guess. So I do like how price is still pushing up higher, long term speaking. So again, this is we do have like a sideways moving channel right now, pretty much in an oversold condition, as we can see. So we could expect some divergence coming in as we make lows. And then if we do get that divergence, with the change, and if we get like a strong candle like so, I'll be confident enough to take a buy, and hopefully we can start to look for those buying opportunities into 93 and beyond. So yeah, so I'll be interested into seeing how that performs over the next few days or so. And finally, for this video for this week is USDCAD. So what I was looking out for last week was a possible opportunity to push up higher and have that sell off lower. So I'm kind of in two states right now, because I feel like we could still push lower now, and that's combining, you know, all of the data with US dollar, and you know, pretty much I think that there is going to be a lot of weakness coming into play. We do also have the NFP, I think, actually next week or so. So this could make sense of why we could expect a new turnaround. Maybe that's the case, maybe it's not, but essentially what I'll be personally looking out for throughout for this pair is just pretty much some sort of change over to the downside. So we could get price to push up just a little higher. Maybe that's where we could get another trade, but pretty much I want to make a new low, maybe into 123, maybe even into 1235, and then have that final. Oh, that was ugly. So a little push up higher, put then to break the low into 1235, and then watch for the rally, and then see if we can head into 128 at least. Again, I'm not entirely too sure if it is worthy of taking a short, but again, in due time it will. It just depends how you know, price is. But you know, if we were to squeeze it, we could squeeze a sell for 100 pips. But again, the main turnaround is the run towards the upside, and that is, you know, really just depends how low we go. The lower we go, in my opinion, is better, because then the upside opportunity is going to be much more for us. So again, this could be good 400, 500 pips. So yeah, I hope you can pretty much see where I'm coming from through this. So yeah, so this obviously been this week. You know, there has been some good opportunities last week or so. I don't think there was as many, but I feel like there is, you know, usually what happens, in my opinion, is when, you know, it starts to get slower and slower, there's usually going to be a new bigger trend forming, and that really tries to trap a lot of people in play. So I'm just trying to stay aware of that. I'm not try to push any trades for now, because I am aware of these big turnarounds coming soon, and when we get those big turnarounds, that's usually the time to become more aggressive, and yeah, really start to hedge in on those positions whilst it makes those big bull runs or the massive sell-offs. So yeah, so we do have NFP coming up next week or so, so just be mindful of that. Again, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, guys, I do appreciate your time for watching and listening. If you have any other comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you very much for listening, guys, and we'll see you all in our next video.